So being a technical judge this year was a really bright point in what was, let's face it, a pretty tough summer. There were some amazing papers that took me on a journey through so many brands' fantastic achievements over recent years. The range of entries was vast, but all were impressive in their own ways. You probably don't know this, but the papers are randomised for each judge, so that the first paper everybody read was different. The first one that I had was for Central Coast, which was an Australian local tourist board entry. And they set an incredibly high bar for the entries to come for me. I was really impressed with how well written their paper was, and it really took me on a journey. Everything was backed up with science and hard facts, not just evidence of success, which was really clear and impressive. But what I liked about this one was also the science they'd employed throughout their entire strategy. As an analyst, I'm naturally sceptical about claims of success, but there was no arguing with this case. The paper was also really entertaining to read. Now, that might not be deemed essential, but as a judge, you have a lot of papers to read, and this one really stood out to me and was a total pleasure to assess. Another paper that really stood out to me was Sick Kids, and this was an entry from Canada. Again, I was taken on a very impressive and rigorous story of the success for the organisation over many years. And clearly it laid out how the campaign was successful and backed it up with really strong numbers. I think I even shed a tear at some point with this one whilst watching an ad. It really was quite impressive. If I were to give some tips for future entrants on what would make their papers stronger, I'd say the following. Firstly, I'd like to see more of a longer term view of performance assessed. Now, everybody proclaims to buy into Les and Peter and making sure that we're measuring and planning for the long term, but I didn't always see this in a lot of papers. Some entries did it really well, so notably WaterAid and Sick Kids took us on a journey over many years, and we really did see some long-term effects. But some papers seem to have been entered too soon. I know it's really tempting to want to enter a successful campaign right after it's been run, but the story is so much stronger if you can provide proof of longer-term success. And I realise that's frustrating to have to wait another 2 years until the next awards, but your entry will be so much stronger if you can. And secondly, I would say keep your entry and your arguments as simple as you can. So go from your upfront objectives to what you did to hit those objectives, and then how successful you were against those objectives. Don't be tempted to throw in everything you can think of or get your hands on into the paper, because what it actually does is dilute your proof of success and makes it really tough to compute.
So, as far as evidence is concerned, entries who are standing out typically have very clear measurement objectives, and all the data used in the paper is telling a clear story around those. The paper would set up the overall context, like the category, market trends, and other competitor activities. Then good efforts are made to isolate impacts from other factors. Also, any other comparable data will help. For example, prove why the brand should invest the money in this campaign, not do something else. So, as an example, NHS has done a great job to use the data setting up overall context on recruitment trends. And the entry used the data answering the overall objectives directly and clearly. It isolated the other factors and it discussed opportunity cost, what might happen without the campaign. So as a non-profit campaign, it has done a great job overall. In terms of where can we see the industry getting better, so I think we saw more and more entries are recognizing the brand long-term value. And we knew that over the years, IPA and the whole industry are pushing very hard on those messages and the learnings from the past. So from this year, we can clearly see the impact. However, there's still lots of work to be done, and because from this year's entries, some of them failed to provide the data. They only used the industry average number, which is clearly not enough. But we know it is very difficult to prove the value. So overall, I think it is still very positive trends, and we are getting better over time. In terms of what issues do I see as important to address going forward, personally, I think it's around data storytelling. So you need to be very clear why you provide this data in your paper. And some entries put a lot of charts and data. Sometimes they can be quite confusing. And obviously, it's great to see there are lots of measurements have been done. However, we can tell some entries are simply putting all the data they have, but they fail to make the clear points and the connections at the same time. So you need to make sure the data used in the paper is in line with the overall objectives, and each piece of data is telling an important plot of the whole story. In terms of other highlights, I think it's great to see more and more entries are using data as part of their creative process, so not only for the measurement purpose. Like the Central Coast entry, it used the control group at a very early stage to test their creative approach, and the data clearly made the points of the differences between claim behavior versus actual behavior. So from the technical point of view, it is a very effective way to build a case.
Hello, I'm Grace Kite, Managing Director of Gracious Economics, and I'm here to tell you about my top 3 findings from the IPA technical judging this year. First, top of the list, for any econometrician, this is the cream of the crop, Diageo. They have got an amazingly mature use of econometrics. So not only are they modelling everything across all of their brands in all of the countries, to see what's working and to make sure that they're not wasting any money, but they're actually embedded those findings into the organisational culture. Yes, we're using tools, but also using people management and people skills. So some of these learnings are being talked about. Econometrics is being talked about in people's reviews even, and you know, that is just really an important step, the human touch, to getting effectiveness findings used properly. And what Diageo showed this year in their entries is that they really are doing that. And it's something we talk to clients a lot about. And some of our clients managed it too. It's not, Diageo aren't the only ones in the world, but it is rare and it's very special and it's to be celebrated. So they're my number one, really. Second, and these are not very high profile cases, but there's 2 papers this year that were able to separate out certain aspects of what they were doing very convincingly, and as a result we have learned about those particular aspects. The first one is the Cotswold Furniture Company. Now again, they are a D2C brand looking to scale up, and they were taking their first steps away from direct response activity. So the only thing they changed was moving from direct response TV to moving to brand TV. And the slots were slightly different and the copy was slightly different, and the messaging was different. But what that was able to do, because that was the only thing they was changed, the results were very convincing actually, that that change really did make a difference. And that's actually a really important finding, because that question of how do D2C brands scale up is a marketing question of our time really, and this is a really important case study for me to be added to our knowledge in that area. Wagamama's another one, very convincing technical work there, and they really homed in on the results around cinema. So we managed to learn quite a bit about that channel, about when it's really effective and how to manage it for effectiveness. And again, really convincing technical work. Not a huge, great big success story, but it worked and they managed that channel very well. And now we've learnt more about cinema because of it. Third one, wouldn't be fair to not mention the long-term cases this year. This was the year that Vorsprung-Dirk technique went head-to-head with Because I'm Worth It in the awards, and whichever one's your favourite of those. Personally, for me, it's probably Because I'm Worth It, but whichever one's your favourite, those 2 cases both had to rely on lots and lots of data going back for a very long period of time, and that's always difficult from an evidence point of view. Anyone who's worked in data knows that if you go back far enough, that it gets patchy. But what's really exciting is that both of those cases managed to get past the technical judging and do really well. So well done to both of them.
It was amazing to see such dedication to effectiveness. There's loads for us to celebrate and lots for us to learn. Learnings that can help us all with some big decisions that lie ahead as we continue to face extraordinary levels of disruption and uncertainty. Tesco provides us with a fantastic example of an organisation that needed to make some big decisions in the face of some very strong headwinds. Despite the multiple challenges and threats the business faced, Tesco have started winning again, with comms playing a pivotal role. Comms has undoubtedly helped Tesco rebuild their brand. Comms has helped Tesco rebuild relationships both inside and outside the business. And comms has delivered sustainable long-term growth. Tesco investment is no longer short-term only. The Tesco paper provides us with great insight into how big decisions were made and how they got them bang on. It also clearly demonstrates the value of getting these decisions right, with results underpinned by rigorous measurement and analytics. Here, Tesco was not alone. It was fantastic to see the importance that the industry is now placing on analytics and measurement in the decision-making process. As an industry, I think we can be very proud of the progress we've made here. However, of course, we can do more. And I think there are a number of areas of knowledge that we can look to build upon. Firstly, a lot of the long-term work is focused on growing the customer base, the quantity premium. More work can and should be done related to the price premium, the willingness to pay, and how comms helps to unlock this value. There's also a heavy reliance on observational, aggregated analyses such as econometrics. I would love to see greater adoption of experimentation, where we can better adopt a customer or audience lens and explore and answer even more questions. And finally, I think there's another way that we can cast the effectiveness net wider still. It was great to see so many entries from overseas, and hopefully that trend will continue. However, the entries are still dominated by large, established advertisers and brands. It'd be great to uncover the role of comms in newer and more verticals, and also understand how comms can help D2C brands win, for example. Hopefully, with continued dedication to effectiveness, we'll see some of these elements tackled and included next time.